Welcome to EARLI Research Stories, the podcast that brings you inspiring stories from diverse voices in the world of learning and instruction. Join us as we dive into the latest trends, research breakthroughs, and insights shaping the field today. Hosted by Cris Castro, Rachel Shanks, and Leonie Johan, this is your inside look at the heart of educational research.
I am Cris Castro, and this is a special episode for the 40th anniversary of EARLI. Today we're with Sanna Järvelä and Hans Gruber, former presidents of EARLI. Sanna is a professor in learning sciences and head of the Learning and Educational Technology Research Lab, LET, at the University of Oulu, Finland. Her research focuses on self-regulated learning, computer-supported collaborative learning, and AI in education. She leads Hybrid Intelligence Research Program at the University of Oulu. Sanna has been serving EARLI from different perspectives such as C Coordinator, GLI and FLR Editor, EC Member and President of EARLI. And then we have also with us today Hans Gruber, full Professor of Educational Science at the University of Regensburg in Germany. He holds an honorary doctoral degree from the University of Turku in Finland. Currently, he serves as Editor-in-Chief of Educational Research Review and as Chairman of the Board of Trustees at the University of Education, Weingarten, Germany. Previously, he served as Vice-Rector of the University of Regensburg, Germany. His main research topics are professional learning, expertise, eye tracking, workplace learning, social network analysis, and higher education. He is also a past president of EARLI. Can you please summarize your career and the mentors you had along the way?
I have to acknowledge that I'm a true EARLI product.
Okay.
Because already when I finalized my master's thesis, I participated on the first EARLI conference in Turku. And since that, I started to work for the PhD. And all of these years, I've been participating EARLI conference, being able to serve EARLI and work for EARLI from different perspectives. And I think EARLI has really coached me in my scientific thinking, in my networking, and also being able to build my own research agenda in terms of understanding learning. But of course, the former EARLI president Erno Lehtinen was my supervisor. And he has really guided me all these years through EARLI to my career where I am now.
Okay. What about you, Hans?
Almost similar. Not totally similar. I was lucky enough that after I graduated from university, I got a PhD position at the Max Planck Research Institute. Very nice position where you really focus on research in Munich. And I could do my PhD there. And after that, I got an offer by a professor who was newly appointed to the University of Munich to join his group as a postdoc, and that was Heinz Mandl, also former EARLI president. And I joined his group, and we together built up the group. And one of the first messages I got from Heinz was, aim for EARLI. That is the community where you find your home position and where you find your colleagues, future colleagues. Not the local ones which are in the same country, but the European context, and do that. And I remember very well that when we thought on planning my postdoc work, one of his first advices was try to become EARLI president. Okay. And I found that very strange because that's not what you normally have in mind. That could happen. But of course, he said, it can happen. It happened with me as well. So go strong for EARLI and just try to be committed. And if it happens, then it's okay.
What was happening in the world of educational research that you felt the need for being president of EARLI?
At that time, many things happened. And in fact, Sanna and I did many of these steps together because we entered important committee within EARLI, so to say the leadership committee, which was at that time called executive committee. We entered it at the same time in 2009. And we felt that we have to contribute to further develop EARLI and to bring it into the current world, what's happening, what's going on. There were many things happening on, many things, new technologies all the time happening on, both together. And at that time, we thought that we must prepare the EARLI organization to be prepared for the future, to stabilize it internally, make the processes clearer. And then we made a decision with our group that we should change early in the way that it's suitable for dealing with future problems. And we were clear that that would be a process that would take 6, 8, 10 years. And so we were in total a group of 5 people who agreed that if we are elected, we would stand in for presidents in a sequence and so have a long period of time and do that very strategically. And then we did. And then, of course, you have to be elected. And there are different roles within this executive committee. Normally you have duties. You focus on the fostering publication strategy or so. And if you are willing to do more leadership, then you stand in as what we call president-elect. Then you are for 2 years in a role where you get more responsibility for the special interest groups, and then you are the next president, upcoming president. And we decided that that would be fine if we do that in a long run, because it's long and many changes, and we succeeded. And obviously what we could offer was interesting enough to the community so that we were elected once after the other. And in fact, I started my presidency in 2015 in conference in Limassol in Cyprus, and at that time Sanna was elected as my president-elect, so it was clear that she would be the next one in 2017. And so it happened, and we could face many challenges too early and to prepare the community.
So since this presidency doesn't have re-elections, you did like this long-time plan of having people in the team.
At that time, that happened, that we were a group of people who were super committed, because we grew up in the world early as our world, so it was clear we would be willing to do so. That was maybe even a unique committee where we found there are many people in a row, and we knew if we are elected, who will be the next president in 6 or 8 years. And that at that time was crucial, because EARLI had when it started, it was important to consolidate it as a European association, the first one in the field, and then it was focused, and then we saw, but we have to open nevertheless, and now we are consolidated, we have good channels that we are running, and now we have to open ourselves for new challenges in the future.
Sanna, what were the biggest challenges you faced as EARLI former president, and how did you tackle them?
Well, I think I was quite happy president in terms of what Hans told, that EARLI was very good shape, and it was more. I didn't feel that there were many major challenges, mainly high goal to keep the scientific quality and also develop the scientific quality, because the competition in between journals and the competition with the societies and the conferences where people go is quite high. Yeah. So we wanted to be sure that we are as top as we can with these activities we created, EFGs, journals, SIGs, and all of these activities. Of course, in terms of problem solving, if not weekly, monthly, there were issues where we need to discuss with office and think about some logistic issues, and we are always concerned about organizing conference and budgeting and these kind of issues. But I would say that nothing major challenges, only mostly opportunities.
Okay. You, Hans, have like an anecdote or a challenge you want to...
In general, that is true. If you do it in a long run, then you sometimes turn challenges into opportunities. Just there are things you have to think for new solutions, and you have good ideas. Then it's sometimes not easy to distinguish between challenges and opportunities. Okay. It's just affordances to do something new, but you have to do it. Yeah. And you have to find your teams, and that always is an enterprise of very, very many people and very many supporters, not only the small leadership committee, but just think that one of the main activities is journal publications. There are so many people helping in the editorial board or as associate editors or as reviewers, and to keep the contact lively is an ongoing, you could call it an ongoing challenge.
That's like a good approach in life, seeing challenges as opportunities. How can EARLI continue to support young researchers and keep pushing the boundaries of educational research? Sanna.
If we think about young researchers,
yes. Like Jure, for example.
Jure, yes. This is something we have established quite well, I would say. For example, our PhD students do the first conference in Jure because that's a very gentle way to learn to be part of academic community and so on. But also, that's absolutely something that we have to consciously plan so that anytime we open new funding instruments, for example, EFG, that it is even compulsory that you have young scholars part of that. So we kind of make the structure. Our young researchers are very active in terms of publishing and also informing about their research and also networking.
Hans, how can EARLI keep pushing the boundaries of educational research?
I think what you addressed just before is one of the main things we have to do, trust on the young people who grow up in different worlds and will bring it into research. And as Sanna said, our jury is an outstanding organization. I do not know any organization in any field. The fostering of the young people is so excellent as it is here. We always organize it in a way that is a pre-conference for the young ones when the big conference is, and in the year in between there is an own jury conference, and there is always input by workshops and other activities. And young people always bring in new topics. And many of the new topics nowadays we are talking on artificial intelligence and others, which is meanwhile quite normal for young people, not so normal still for older people. So that is a new drive, and it's an important topic that we have to consider. We recognize in our countries that politicians always say that education is the most important, but it's not the area where the most money runs in. So that is, you cannot take it for granted that education is important, and research and education is recognized everywhere. So that's always open topics that are there. But you can be rather sure that those topics are addressed when we have conferences like here, and seeing how that changes with a newer generation. Again, a challenge and an opportunity to address that.
So with Eric, the founder of EARLI, we were talking about, he thinks that the representation of European countries should be more balanced. For example, incorporate more Eastern European countries. What do you think about that?
In EARLI?
In EARLI, yeah.
Absolutely, yes. We have been quite lucky in EARLI that we have few very active scholars, or we have had during these past years, who have stimulated a lot of research culture and research interaction in between those Eastern countries and also Southern countries. So we are not only Central European dominated society, but that's also something we need to, especially in these days when research funding and traveling to conferences and all of these it's getting harder and harder because of the financial situation. We need to be conscious about covering everything because all these cultural aspects, contextual aspects, they are very important in research, but also in terms of expertise, how we spread. But luckily also we have been able to host our conference in North and South and every time change hosting country, so that also spreads a lot
Yes.
early research culture.
There are some very central countries which were central from the very beginning. You're talking about Eric de Cotte, who's from Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, Finland, Sweden are very strong countries. Others are not so strong. We have been to Italy, not so much to the Francophone countries, because we decided in the beginning that EARLI would be focused on English language, which is not so prominent in the Francophone countries. And it's the part of Europe where we still have to be more visible or more present, indeed, is East and Southeast Europe. And the main reason why there are difficulties are economical reasons. There is a different, and what we normally charge for conference participation is for many in East Europe too expensive. And it's not easy to find a solution. There have been some ideas for smaller conferences from our special interest groups to organize them. I remember that once we had a conference which we organized in Warsaw, Poland, which was really outstanding, and we've met so many interesting new people. So that certainly is something that has to go on. I think that during Sanna's presidency it was more actively done, that, so to say, sponsoring people from those countries was more actively done, and that is something that EARLI
supporting
focuses
their travel
and
conferences.
that we facilitate that. But that's an open question.
EARLI is not only European, because we also extend to even South America. We have some participate in this conference, but also very active Australian members and North American, Canadian.
One of our journals in Educational Research Review will soon launch an attempt to attract more people more systematically from African countries, which is an unbelievable potential, but that is work to do.
More challenges, more opportunities.
Yeah. Again, both, yes.
Yeah. So now let's move a little bit more into the general educational research, not only EARLI. How do you think the research trends in learning and instruction have changed in the last years? And how do you think the future looks like?
Because the learning environments have changed a lot, and mainly because of technology development, digitalization, and now recently AI development, the way we understand how people learn and how we can support, there are much more opportunities for that. So we have to participate more on this multidisciplinary discussion and participate on working with those who are developing those technologies so that we can really make strong evidence-based decisions for teaching and learning. Another issue which I want to mention is that we have very high needs to develop and educate more people, because simply in the traditional way that we build schools and educate teachers, that way of teaching is not enough, since we have global population is growing so rapidly, and we have a lot of children living in crisis areas, for example, so we need to find new ways to teach and learn and educate them. I think this is exactly the area we need to work harder, but on the other hand, all that knowledge we have about teaching and learning, understanding about these processes is still very valid, because those motivational issues, cognitive issues, metacognitive issues, all these social interactions, that information is still very valid, even though these changes and opportunities are quite high. So therefore, we have to use our strong basic research in order to solve these current new changing learning landscapes and environments.
Yeah, I like that approach, using the base of research to follow these trends, not the other way around.
No, absolutely, I agree.
Good. What about you, Hans?
Of course, I have to agree with what Sanna said, and because we were following the same trends at the same time. And that is really true, that the big body of research which is available and which is trustworthy is there, and we got opportunity, at least in two very different directions, to extend our research. And the one is to go in more detail, analyze what's happening within persons. One IT tool that is available is the analysis of eye movements. Where do people look on when they do some job? That can be school learning, that can be radiologists in the clinic when they do it. So what are things that they attract their attention, their visual attention, and then leads to cognitive processing? And analysis of what people are looking at is now much easier than it was before. And that's what EARLI responded to with founding a special interest group on online measures of learning processes, that we can follow on the processes and then relate it to what we already know. And the other is the tools that we have now available, and faster computer technology allows us to analyze much bigger data sets than earlier. So we can put it in a larger context, could do, for example, in social network analysis, to huge studies where we see impact on huge data sets, which could be in societies, how they change, but could also be other big data sets. And that's, for example, the usage of online media, and follow what's going on in the usage of Twitter, X, or whatever. We need new friends, new interdisciplinary partners who construct new machines, new technologies, and interact with them and make clear what we want from them to go. And that, of course, then continues. EARLI also founded a special interest group on neuroscience. So then we continue from the behavioral analysis to biological or brain processes. And on the other side, get more ideas on political processes, how they are shaped by general trends in education. that require our attention, and that is very often nowadays that we have inequalities in many countries, increasing inequalities. Our large-scale studies show that differences are growing within institutions, and we have more possibilities now to analyze that and then find out ways.
Yeah. My example of this question was I was in this morning in the session where we had presentations about how AI can help teachers to automatically analyze teaching and learning interaction with the students in classrooms. Although, of course, this is a bit kind of even risky idea, but I think it's also following those trends what are happening in AI development and technology development. And after that, I was in another session where we were discussing very details about the theories and concept, that how we can use these old strong theories to understand these new processes. So it's very important that we look far and use our strong understanding about teaching and learning to participate on that discussion to solve these global problems.
Thank you. This is the question we always ask in our episodes. What tips can you give the audience to achieve work-life balance? Hans.
It might be a dangerous question, isn't it?
It is dangerous.
Yeah, it is a dangerous question. Bad example, and that's me. If I just think back and what I told in the beginning, how super interesting this early is, that if I immerse into the early community, I would never have the idea that it's somehow related to stress or to, and all of a sudden I'm there all the time, and if I would require other people to do it the same way, I would not be allowed, because it's hurting rules of well-being and or separation of work, and if you are so deep in, you cannot imagine a life without early, and that's difficult to require from your young team members. Just dedicate your whole life to research, and of course it's not true in total, because if you are so deeply involved, then you do many interesting things. This morning we had a symposium where we discussed the life achievement of the new EARLI Award winner Alexander Renkel, and just showing that it's always humor, it's sport, it's football, it's dinner, and what so on. And then immediately would say what could be called work environment could also be called well-being environment, and then it's difficult. But I'm pretty sure that each of us were very committed to our research work and gave it high priority. That makes a rich life if you are committed to what you're doing here in your research.
You're saying that it's not work-life, it's kind of combined. The boundaries are difficult to establish between the two.
Sometimes I can clearly say that it's the same or different. But for example, I've been very interested in doing lots of running, and I always was in a position where I could do my training runs whenever I wanted during a work day. And then people would say, "You don't take your work serious." Then I said, I go for a run, then I'm fitter. When I return, then I work better. As a professor in Germany, you are in a privileged situation. You can do whatever you want in the time schedule. But if you manage that all things you need to recover and to feel well are somehow related to how you spend your time.
But in general, you're telling me that you enjoy your work.
Yeah.
So that's the best maybe way to
Yeah.
cope with that work-life mix. What about you, Sanna?
Yes, absolutely. This is my dream job. My approach for this is very practical, because I work in self-regulated learning theory, so it gives me a lot of advice, and it has helped me to be more systematic and set goals and do some good planning and find strategies how to be very well organized and monitor how things are progressing. Secondly, I always trust collaborations and networks, because it's never my own thinking. I would say also never only my own responsibility on some of the research we do. And because of networking and collaboration and the kind of creating those connections, it really helps you to grow, and you always find support and new ideas. And I think that's really the kind of core issue in academia, which makes it very successful. And I have to say that my third issue, my secret weapon, is finished forest. because in Finland we have more forest than people.
Okay.
Doing enough outdoor activities every day, running, skiing in winter, picking berries, hiking, just going for forest to relax. That's for me very important.
We talk about common things. When we both entered at the same time the executive committee, one of the first things that quickly happened after that was that we changed this executive committee into a running committee, and we went out for a common joint runs together in the morning, just doing that. And I'm also seeking nature and doing long runs where I'm away, and during that there is no work there, and it helps a lot to get back.
And we still have this running with the president. It started.
And that's all based on research, the cognitive benefits of physical activity, nature.
Yeah,
So-
own empirical research.
So it's good that you are applying what you're researching about. I think this marks the end of our conversation. Thank you for accepting our invitation.
Thank you for inviting us to share our opinions.
Yes, thank you, Cris, and congratulations to EARLI, of course.
Listeners, make sure to subscribe, follow us on social media, and stay tuned for the exciting episodes we have coming your way. See you next time on the EARLI Research Stories podcast.